All right. Peace and blessings, brothers and sisters. Once again, this is the Cosmocentric Mystic with some information to share with you today about an early Christian belief system called Gnosticism. Gnosticism existed in the early part of Christian history. It arose like almost simultaneously with the current Orthodox view of Christianity. So you have Gnostics that existed at the time of Paul, so to speak, and you have early Gnostic writings that existed in the first century, and then you have major Gnostic writings that existed in the second century, and then you have other Gnostic writings that were produced in the third century or the fourth century, whatever. And so it was a very, very prolific system in the early Christian world, and so I think we need to have a better understanding of it and just engage it a little more. So this presentation will be divided up into several different parts. The first part of this presentation will discuss their belief systems. The other parts of the presentation will go into the various texts because they're divided up into different texts. So we'll go into the various texts of the systems and just a brief discussion of it, not really anything deep, as it's discussed, and then we'll move on from there. I hope you enjoy the presentation, and I hope this brings you a little bit more understanding on early Christian history. Peace. Let us begin. All right. So Gnostics believe that to truly know oneself is to have direct experience of God. And so this was a direct contradiction to the understanding that there needs to be an intermediary in any connection with the person related to what is deemed the apostolic succession, meaning that the authority of Christ went to a certain church, particularly the church in Rome, because Peter went to Rome to begin his gospel, and Jesus said to Peter, "Upon this rock I shall establish my church." And so they took that line and ran with it and said, this is the authority of Christ here. They embraced a personified wisdom called Sophia, which can really be understood as meaning divine insight. And the story of creation is not a happy one. They saw that something was fundamentally wrong with this world. It wasn't perfect. It's not a perfect world. And because there was too much evil, too much death, thus there had to be something wrong with creation. And so they made a distinction, right, between the actual transcendent spiritual deity that's surrounded by truth and light, and then this creator of the world that they deemed at best incompetent, and at worst malevolent and dangerous. They maintain that through all of the craziness and that all of the darkness and evil in this world, human beings had within them the spark of divinity and could manifest this light in their day-to-day world. They said that the majority of they said that people were asleep. They were imprisoned, they were drunken, they were fallen, that they were ignorant because of the actions of the demiurge, Yahweh, that they must work to purify themselves, to raise their consciousness to the level of knowledge, to gnosis with God. Let me see. Many of the earliest Gnostic thinkers were Jewish mystics who were trained in Hellenistic thought and practices. And so this would have included an understanding of a transcendent high God. It would have been with Platonic and Socratic thinking. that they were trained in. Now you had John the Baptist. We all know John the Baptist, and he preached about an apocalypse. John, he lived in the area of Qumran, where the Nag Hammadi texts were found. Also, we know that the Nag Hammadi Jewish people were like this militant group that were preparing for war, preparing to take cats out. And so, that's how John came down. That's how John was rolling. Then you have Simon Magus. He lived about the same time as Jesus and taught that humans had special abilities. Yeah, he said that people could fly. So it was kind of like interesting. But he actually, clashed with Paul. And this is talked about in the Bible, his different various clashes with Paul, because he disagreed with, what Paul was doing. And then Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya, so he was very influential during that time, and he was also considered a mystic. So Christ's role in Gnosticism is different. So Christ is a revolutionary. He wants to awaken the people in their position and their understanding under the demiurge, how the demiurge has trapped them in this world, and bring them back to a state of knowledge or gnosis with the one. And so that's not like the emerging Orthodox view of the Roman Catholic Church, that Christ came to die for our sins or to rise from the dead. Jesus's role was to reveal knowledge that would awaken people to their true nature as beings of light, and to give them a path to liberation out from under the cruel actions of this demiurge. Jesus taught that people who become one with the light can live a life whereas their mind and the mind of God are one, and they can find their own way back to the light. So you and the divine essence have this personal relationship. That relationship is dependent upon your ability to manifest discipline and dedication to the divine light within and bring it forth in your life. Very African, very African. In the secret book of John, Jesus says, I am the forethought of pure light. I am the thought of the Virgin Spirit who raises you to a place of honor. Arise and remember that you have heard, and trace your root, which is I, the compassionate. So he's saying you and he are one. And so for Gnostics, Jesus was a revealer of the knowledge that the world is a creation of the demiurge, and that mankind has the ability to transcend that world and merge their consciousness once again with the light. As we move on in understanding some of their texts, we'll see that the demiurge created man, but was not able to give man life. That spark of life had to come from the higher essence. We'll see that in one of the books that we go through later on. So they also understand what is going on here. They also understood that there is a transcendent deity above all that is called it's in the book of Baruch, and it's called the Good, the One, the Invisible Spirit, the Virgin Spirit, the Father. Gnostics had a world that they called the pleroma, which meant the fullness of God. And the inhabitants of this world were called eons, our eternal realms. And the first of these eons is thought of as the Divine Mother and called the thought of God. There was this figure amongst the eons who represents the divine in this world. She's fallen. It's a woman, sister, feminine deity, that was fallen from the light, yet present in the light as the light of God, yet fallen from the light and present, has the light of God with us and then within us. And this demiurge is kind of portrayed as ignorant, tragic, like a megalomaniacal type of cat. In the secret book of John, he's depicted as an ugly snake-like creature who was the child of Sophia. Something happened, kind of reminiscent of the birth of Urugu, as Urugu burst forth from his mother's womb. But this one was snake-like, and he had the face of a lion with eyes flashing like bolts of lightning. He was called Samael, and he was understood to be an angry and jealous God. Now, the Gospel of Philip Christians, it's very different, because the Gospel of Philip, it doesn't think a person should be called a Christian. A person with gnosis might be understood as being one with the revealer. And so the Gospel of Philip says it's better to call yourself Christ.